August 9th, 1944, near Le Bourgneuf-la-Forêt, France. The morning fog clings low to the hedgerows, muffling the distant rumble of artillery. Feldwebel Victor Rehmann wipes a smear of soot from his goggles as he leans out of the commander's hatch of his Panzer IV. The night's fighting has left the air thick with the metallic scent of cordite and the smoldering remains of American armor. Below him, in a shallow depression beside the road, lie the charred hulks of 3 Sherman tanks, still smoking, still warm. His crew had knocked them out barely 12 hours earlier. Ryman shakes his head. Dry vinegar, he mutters. 3 fewer. His gunner Unteroffizier Karl Weiss climbs up beside him, helmet dangling loosely from one hand. They keep coming, Weiss sighs, but at least we've slowed them down. Ryman doesn't respond. His eyes drift toward the sound of engines, distant, faint, but unmistakable. That low, droning hum of American radial motors cutting through the fog. More Shermans. He feels a tightening in his chest. They shouldn't be here. Not already. Not so soon. The previous night's battle had been brutal, but efficient. 3 clean penetrations at under 600 meters, each target burning before it had time to reverse. And now, less than half a day later, the same silhouettes are reappearing through the haze, crawling forward with infantry in tow. The radio crackles in his headset. Panzergruppe Burkholz, to all crews be advised. New American armor advancing from the west. Prepare to relocate. Weiss blinks confused. New armor, impossible. Those units were supposed to be depleted. Ryman keeps watching the silhouette's boxy, high-turreted, unmistakably Sherman shapes. I don't think they were depleted, he says quietly. They're replaced. Weiss gives a short, humorless laugh. Replaced overnight Victor, we knocked out an entire platoon. But even as he says it, his expression falters. The enemy movement is too organized, too steady, too fresh. Ryman drops back into the turret, sealing the hatch. Loader AP ready. Gunner, find a firing position. As the tank lurches forward, grinding over broken hedgerow roots, the sense of unease follows him like a shadow. Across the foggy fields, the American armor forms a new line. Shermans with unscarred, paint-intact stowage boxes, tools still strapped neatly to the hulls. They gleam faintly in the gray morning light. Not a single one bears the soot stains or impact marks of last night's fighting. They're brand new. Ryman tries to dismiss the thought, but the pieces lodge in his mind like shards of glass. He knows what a replacement schedule looks like. He knows how long it takes to repair even a damaged tank in their own workshops, days, sometimes weeks. New vehicles that can take months. Months they no longer have. And yet, the Americans are here again, only hours after losing a platoon. As the Panzer IV moves into a new firing position, the first American shells start landing nearby, kicking up fountains of mud and shattered roots. Weiss steadies his hands along the gun breech. We'll knock these out too, he says. But there's no conviction in his voice. Ryman grips the intercom mic. Gunner range 700. Target the lead Sherman. He hears breathing tight fast. This is no longer the confident crew of last night. Outside, the fog parts as the Shermans roll forward, their engines churning the damp earth. Behind them come trucks, jeeps, and more infantry than Riemann had seen in days. A cold realization creeps into his mind. If America can replace tanks this fast, what else can they replace? A distant whistle rises, a U.S. artillery battery zeroing in. The first shell lands only meters away. Mud rains against the hull like wet gravel. Ryman's heart pounds. Something fundamental has shifted in this war, something none of them had understood until this moment. And as the fog lifts, revealing yet more American armor approaching along the road, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't a single resupply convoy. It's an industrial flood. August 10th, 1944. Outskirts of Laval, France. Rain begins to fall, thin, cold droplets tapping against the metal hull of the Panzer IV like impatient fingers. Feldwebel Victor Reimann studies his map with a furrowed brow as the tank idles beneath a grove of twisted apple trees. The roads are choked with retreating Wehrmacht units. Wagons, motorcycles, half-tracks, everyone is moving back, trying to regroup after the previous day's unexpected American advance. But something else is wrong. For the second time in 24 hours, German reconnaissance reports confirm the same unbelievable message. New Shermans are replacing destroyed ones at a rate no one in the German High Command had imagined possible. Weiss climbs into the turret dripping wet, a wool blanket wrapped around his shoulders. They say another armored column arrived during the night, he reports. Trucks full of tank crews, mechanics, fuel by the ton. He pauses, lowering his voice. And more Shermans. Fresh ones. Reimann tries to hide his surprise, but Weiss sees it anyway. It's not possible, the gunner mutters. A factory can't produce tanks that fast, not even theirs. But deep down, Reimann isn't so certain anymore. A clattering noise approaches boots, trampling mud. Oberleutnant Gruber, their company commander, appears at the side of the tank, water streaming down his greatcoat. Reimann, he says sharply, mount up. The battalion is pulling back to the river line. American armor is already probing to the north. Reimann blinks. Already, sir, we destroyed 6 Shermans in that direction yesterday. Gruber's jaw tightens. Yes, and they replaced them, all of them, with interest. He climbs aboard the Panzer IV's side and leans close so the crew can hear over the rain. We're not facing a division, he says grimly. We're facing an industry. The words hang in the air like smoke. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then the engine roars, and the Panzer IV grinds onto the road, joining a column of battered armor. Some tanks drip with makeshift repairs, patched plates welded on in the field track links, bolted where replacement armor should be. Beside them, a group of German infantry marches silently, their boots sinking into the mud. One of the soldiers stares at Reimann's tank, then at the distant thunder of American artillery echoing across the horizon. They have more tanks than we have bullets, the infantryman mutters. The road bends toward a low ridge. As the Panzer IV ascends, Reimann lifts his binoculars. His breath catches. Across the valley, the American armor isn't advancing in a thin spearhead, it's rolling forward in multiple layers. Sherman's M10 tank destroyers, half-tracks. A vast formation stretching down the road like a river of steel and olive drab. Some Shermans still shine with factory gloss, not a single scratch or dent on their hulls. Reimann lowers the binoculars slowly. Weiss whispers, where do they get them all? The question has no answer, only the rhythmic clatter of the Panzer's engine as they continue their slow retreat. Hours later, as dusk settles, the battalion halts beside an abandoned French barn. Mechanics crawl over their vehicles, tightening bolts, checking track tension, siphoning fuel where they can. Reimann steps out to stretch his legs. A distant rumble makes him look west. Truck engines. Dozens of them. Through the dim evening light, a long American supply convoy snakes into view. GMC trucks, tank transporters, a line of jeeps, and at the very back, new Shermans. Still lashed to their trailers. Fresh from depot. Still wearing stenciled shipping numbers. Reimann stands frozen as the truth crystallizes in his mind. Last night's victory meant nothing. Today's victories mean nothing. Tomorrow's will mean nothing, because the Americans can replace tanks faster than the Germans can destroy them. Faster than the Germans can even move theirs. Weiss walks up beside him, following his gaze. Victor, he says quietly, they don't even treat tanks like we do. Reimann turns. What do you mean? Weiss watches another Sherman roll off a transporter. They treat them like ammunition. The barn door creaks in the wind. Somewhere in the darkness, an American machine gun barks a probing patrol, testing their perimeter. Reimann climbs back into the turret, sealing the hatch. For the first time since the campaign began, a sense of inevitability settles over him, heavy as the Normandy fog. The Americans aren't winning through tactics. They're winning through production. through sheer relentless replacement, through numbers Germany can't hope to match. As the Panzer IV's engine rumbles to life, Reimann stares into the dark fields ahead. He has no words for his crew, because deep down he now understands something he cannot yet bring himself to say aloud. And this war has already shifted, and they are on the wrong side of the turning tide. August 12, 1944, near the Mayenne River, western France. Dawn crawls across the landscape in a muted smear of gray and blue. The Panzer IV sits half-concealed beneath the sagging branches of a willow tree, its engine ticking softly as it cools from the long night march. Inside the cramped turret, Feldwebel Victor Reimann listens to the slow drip of condensation falling from the metal interior. Tiny taps echoing through the hull like water torture. Weiss sits on an ammo crate, rubbing his swollen knuckles. "I dreamed about them," he mutters. "Shermans. Rows and rows of Shermans. All new, all waiting their turn to kill us." Reimann tries to smile, but it never reaches his eyes. Outside, the battalion warms their engines. Armor plates clank. Tracks grind against the dirt. The familiar sounds of panzer life, usually comforting, now feel like the rattling bones of an exhausted, overworked machine on the brink of collapse. A messenger arrives on a motorcycle, mud spattered up his legs. Orders from regimental headquarters, he shouts over the roar of engines. "We are to hold this line until noon. American armor is approaching from the southwest." Weiss groans. Again, but it's Reimann's expression that freezes the crew. He isn't surprised. He expected this. He climbs out of the hatch, pulling his binoculars from the leather case. The morning mist is thin, drifting like smoke over the rolling fields. Far in the distance, faint at first, then unmistakable silhouettes. Shermans, a full armored column advancing in perfect spacing. He focuses the lenses and feels his stomach knot. These are not the Shermans from 2 days ago. Not the ones they battled yesterday. These ones carry fresh markings, clean hull numbers. Some still have Cosmoline residue around the bolts, straight from a depot, maybe even straight from a ship. One after another, they crest the ridge, followed by M3 half-tracks and a trail of supply trucks taller than barns. Reimann hears footsteps behind him. Oberleutnant Gruber stands beside him, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "You see it now, don't you?" the officer says quietly. Reimann lowers the binoculars, eyes hollow. "It's endless," he whispers. Gruber nods. "That is America Feldwebel, endless." For a moment, neither man speaks. Only the approaching thunder of engines fills the void. Gruber continues, voice low. "Do you know what the intelligence reports say? Chrysler's Detroit arsenal is producing tanks faster than the shipping officers can count them. Some weeks almost a Sherman every hour." Reimann's breath catches. "Every hour." Gruber nods again. "And that's just one factory." The words hit like a hammer blow, one factory out of dozens. The Panzer IV suddenly feels small beneath him, not because of armor or firepower, but because of the weight of reality pressing in from all sides. For years, German training emphasized quality precision optics, elite crews, carefully tuned engines. The Panzerwaffe was built on skill, not volume. But now, staring at the horizon, Reimann sees a different kind of war emerging. A war of replacement, a war of industrial depth. Gruber's voice turns bitter. "We knock out 5, they send 10 more. We knock out 10, they send 30. Our factories work day and night to produce a single panzer. Theirs produce an army." Weiss climbs up beside them, squinting through the fog. "Victor," he says quietly, "they're tanks. They look like they come straight from the factory floor." Reimann doesn't answer, because he cannot deny what stands before him. The American column reaches the base of the ridge. Engines grow louder. Tracks grind the earth. Dust rises. And in that moment, watching fresh armor roll into the same killing ground he'd dominated just 2 days earlier, Reimann feels something unfamiliar. Not fear, not anger. Resignation. We can fight them, he murmurs. But we can't stop this. Gruber places a gloved hand on his shoulder. Hold the line until noon, he says. That's all we can do now. The officer walks away. Weiss climbs back into the turret. The Panzer IV's engine rumbles to life again. Raymond stays atop the hull for one last moment, staring at the approaching Shermans, so many that they blur into one continuous mass of steel. Then he drops into the turret, slams the hatch shut, and gives the only order he can. Gunner, AP ready. The gun breech locks. The turret hums as it rotates. Outside, the valley is alive with motion. The industrial flood has arrived again, and this time Ryman knows it will not stop. August 12th, 1944. Noon approaches. The Mayenne River line. The Panzer IV nestles into a shallow depression along a narrow country road, its hull half hidden by an embankment thick with wild grass. The air vibrates with the low growl of engines, German engines, hundreds of them straining, as the retreating units try to form a defensive screen. Inside the turret, the atmosphere is suffocating. Ryman grips the periscope handle so hard his knuckles blanch. Sweat trickles down his spine. Every few seconds, the ground trembles, American artillery finding its rhythm. The familiar whistle-then crash pattern echoes across the valley closer each time. Weiss, his cheeks hollow from lack of sleep, murmurs, "They're softening us." Armor's close. The loader Dieter Schwartz fumbles with a shell, almost dropping it. Sorry, hands are shaking. Raymond doesn't scold him. His own hands tremble too. Through the periscope, the first Shermans appear over the ridge, moving fast, too fast, for crews that should be tired. Yet these crews are fresh. These tanks are fresh. Everything about them feels new. The American advance is not reckless. It is confident. A 70 Sapir-6 shell screams overhead and explodes behind the Panzer IV, showering the hull with burning splinters of wood and earth. Ryman lowers the periscope and shouts, "Gunner Sherman near Barn Travers left." The turret whines. Weiss steadies his breath. On target. Fire. The cannon thunders. The shell slams into the Sherman's lower glacis. A flash of sparks. The tank shudders, but keeps moving. It didn't penetrate, Weiss gasps. Load AP, Ryman barks. Schwartz shoves another round into the breech. Another explosion closer now. A U.S. armored car darts past the Shermans, its .50 caliber gun snarling through the hedgerows. The Panzer IV fires again. This time the round punches through the Sherman's turret ring. Smoke billows. A hatch bursts open as the crew bails out. One tank down. A meaningless victory. Because even as it burns, two more Shermans surge forward to fill the gap. Then three more behind them. Ryman stares numb as more armor crests the ridge, more tanks than he's ever seen in a single battlefield sector. It is impossible. It is overwhelming. It is organized. The American columns move with the precision of conveyor belts, just like their factories. Weiss whispers, "How many do they have?" Ryman doesn't answer. He can only watch as yet another column turns onto the road, fresh Sherman's M5 Stuarts, supply trucks, ambulances. For every tank the Germans destroy, the Americans seem to bring 10 more. A deafening crack splits the air. An enemy artillery round detonates just meters from the Panzer IV. Dirt rains down like wet gravel. The tank jolts violently. Schwartz screams from below, "I think we've lost a road wheel." Ryman knows what that means. They will not outrun the next barrage. The radio crackles. Panzergruppe Birkholz, fall back immediately. American armor has breached the northern flank. Weiss looks at Ryman, panic in his eyes. "We can't hold Victor, we can't." Ryman's mind flashes back to the recon reports. The depots, the fresh Shermans arriving on flatbeds, the endless river of trucks. He thinks of Gruber's words. "We're not fighting a division. We're fighting an industry." A shell lands so close, the Panzer IV rocks on its suspension. The hatch above them rattles. Oil drips from the recoil guard. Ryman makes the decision. "Driver," he shouts, "reverse now." The Panzer lurches backward, treads, grinding engine, coughing through the mud. Other German tanks pull out with them. Panthers, Panzerafes, Stu-UGs, all falling back under the pounding rain of steel. Across the valley, the Shermans continue advancing, unbroken, unstoppable. Ryman watches through the periscope as a new line of tanks crests the ridge. Another wave. Painted numbers still crisp, hulls unscarred. No soot, no dents, no evidence of battle. Fresh from the docks, fresh from the factories, fresh from America's endless production line. Weiss whispers, voice hoarse, "Victor, we could fight soldiers, we could fight tanks. But this is something else." Riemann closes his eyes for half a second. When he opens them again, reality stands before him, unblinking, undeniable. The Americans aren't replacing tanks. They're replenishing them continuously, relentlessly. And for the first time in his military career, Victor Riemann understands that no amount of German training discipline or bravery can outmatch the raw, unimaginable scale of the industrial engine now grinding toward them. He grips the periscope. "Hold on," he mutters. "We're not done yet." But even as he says it, a part of him already knows the truth. The line won't hold. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not against this. August 13th, 1944. The road to Le Mans. The Panzer IV roars down a narrow country lane as dawn breaks over retreating columns of gray-clad infantry. Dust clouds billow behind them, mixed with the acrid smell of burning fuel from wrecked vehicles left along the roadside. The Mayenne line has shattered behind them, German units scattering in desperation, trying to outrun the speed of the advancing Shermans. Inside the tank, the engine's vibration is constant numbing. Schwartz jams himself between crates of 75 mm ammunition as the vehicle jolts over ruts and potholes. "We're running blind," he shouts. "Better blind than surrounded." Weiss fires back. The driver, Kruger, leans forward, eyes wide, as he navigates the twisting path. "I saw them Feldwebel," he says, voice trembling. "Shermans. 2 new columns. One on the north road, one on the west. They're faster than us." Riemann doesn't respond at first. He peers through the cupola vision block fields, streaking past abandoned French farms, blurring into flashes of brown stone and red tile. He finally answers, "We don't have to outrun them, just outrun their artillery." But the words feel hollow. A distant thunder rolls across the landscape, American guns firing in coordinated cadence. Minutes later, the ground quivers. Shells begin to fall behind them, walking up the road in relentless increments. Faster, Kruger, faster. The Panzer IV lunges forward, its Maybach engine groaning under the strain. But for all the noise and effort, their top speed on this terrain is barely 20 kilometers per hour. The Shermans can do almost 40 on open ground. Weiss mutters darkly, "They'll be on us again by mid-morning." As if conjured by his words, a low rumble emerges from behind the tree line, growing louder, deeper, more numerous. Riemann swings the turret back, scanning the ridge above the road. Then he sees them, Shermans cresting the rise, silhouetted in the early sunlight. Their fresh olive-drab hulls gleam like polished metal, every one of them carrying full stowage external fuel cans, new track links strapped neatly to the glasses. No scars, no soot, no patchwork repairs. An entire column of vehicles untouched by battle. Weiss's voice cracks. "My God, where are they coming from?" Riemann doesn't blink. Everywhere. Kruger slams the tank into a sharp turn and the treads clawing into the dirt, barely preventing the Panzer from tipping into a roadside ditch. Behind them, other German vehicles follow in ragged formation, trucks overloaded with wounded men, fuel-starved half-tracks, motorcycles sputtering on thin fumes. Then the radios erupt in chaos. Enemy armor on Route D57 column cut off south of Saint-Saturnin. Shermans spotted near the river, crossing fresh ones. Riemann grips the headset tighter. Fresh ones. Always fresh ones. Gruber's voice breaks through the noise, strained but unmistakably firm. All units reform at Le Mans' outer defensive ring. Delay them as long as possible. Weiss groans. Delay with what broken-down panzers and 5 shells each. Schwartz interrupts. 5. We have 4 AP shells left. The tank shakes as a nearby German Stu-G3 misfires its gun and the breech jammed from overuse, while another vehicle belches smoke from a ruptured radiator hose. The entire retreating battalion is a collection of exhausted machines held together by hope and field welds. Ahead, the road widens and slopes downward into a shallow valley. Fog hangs low, curling around the telegraph poles like white serpents. The Panzerführer breaks through the mist, and Ryman's heart stops. Across the valley floor, spaced with perfect discipline, a fresh line of American armor is already taking positions, Sherman's M10s and trucks full of infantry. They've beaten the Germans. Here, too. Weiss stammers. How did they? Ryman answers without expression. They just replaced everything we destroyed and sent it back. While we were still retreating, a Sherman turret turns toward them. The bright glint of sunlight flashes off the barrel. Driver Raymond yells, "Hard right into the orchard." The Panzer IV jerks violently as it swerves off the road, crashing through a row of apple trees. Branches snap against the hull. Apples scatter across the ground like shrapnel. A U.S. shell detonates where they had been seconds earlier, sending a geyser of dirt skyward. In the orchard's partial cover, Ryman exhales just barely. Weiss wipes sweat from his brow. "They're everywhere, Victor. We can't escape them." Ryman's voice is low, almost resigned. "They're not hunting us. They're overtaking us." He looks past the trees toward the valley Shermans, spreading out in a widening arc. More arriving behind them, a logistical serpent coiling across the countryside. The Germans aren't being targeted. They're being buried. And as the Panzer IV crawls deeper into the orchard, Ryman finally understands what this retreat truly is. Not a tactical withdrawal, not a repositioning, but the visible collapse of a force that can no longer keep up with the war it started. August 13th, 1944. Midday. The orchard outside Le Mans. Silence settles over the orchard once the Panzer IV finally comes to a halt, engine idling weakly under the canopy of tangled branches. The leaves above tremble with every distant artillery blast. The sunlight filters through in thin, fractured beams, striping the tank's hull in patterns that look almost like prison bars. Inside, nobody speaks for a full minute. The crew sits in the cramped heat, listening, breathing, waiting. Weiss is the first to break the quiet. "They weren't supposed to get here this fast," he whispers. Ryman doesn't answer. He knows Weiss isn't really asking a question. Schwartz leans his head back against a stack of ammunition crates, eyes staring blankly into the dim, metal-shadowed corners of the fighting compartment. "There's no time anymore," he mutters. One battle blends into the next. No chance to repair. No chance to rest. Kruger wipes sweat from his brow. "Even if we get past Le Mans, they'll just be there ahead of us again." Raymond closes his eyes, inhaling slowly. He remembers what the Panzer instructors used to say back in training. Speed wins battles. Precision wins duels. Logistics wins wars. Back then, he had scoffed, believing skill and steel were the true heart of victory. But now, he is watching logistics, in its purest, most brutal form, rolling toward them on an assembly line of treads and engines. A soft thud echoes across the orchard. Raymond tenses, sweeping the periscope across the tree line. An American reconnaissance jeep slips along the edge of the orchard road, quiet, deliberate. 2 infantrymen ride in the back, rifles ready. A third holds binoculars to his eyes. They're searching, and they're close. Ryman gestures silently, and the crew holds their breath. The Panzer IV is still hidden for now, its dark gray hull camouflaged under the branches and thick leaves. But if the Americans get any closer, they'll spot the tank's tracks through the grass. Weiss whispers Victor. "If they find us," Ryman cuts him off quietly. "I know. He watches the jeep until it disappears behind the distant hedgerows. Only when it is gone does he exhale. "We need to move," he says. "They're probing for gaps. If we sit here, we'll be boxed in." Kruger stares at the fuel gauge. With what Feldwebel were running on fumes, Reimann takes a deep breath. "Then we move until the engine dies. And then we move on foot." Weiss swallows hard. Schwartz whispers, "Is this it then?" The end. Reimann doesn't respond, not immediately. Instead, he opens the hatch and climbs out onto the tank's hull. The orchard is quiet, but beyond the trees, the world is anything but. The hum of engines grows constant now. Sherman's maneuvering trucks, unloading bulldozers, clearing debris from the roads the Germans barely abandoned. It's all so organized. A perfectly synchronized machine. Reimann feels the ground tremble beneath his boots, steady, rhythmic, mechanical. He imagines the source engines fresh from Detroit transmissions, from Allison welded hulls from Ford and General Motors. He imagines the factory's massive halls lit by towering windows, thousands of workers' shift whistles blowing every 8 hours. America isn't merely supplying an army. America is manufacturing one. The realization sinks like lead into his stomach. He looks toward the horizon, where columns of dust roll upward, new American units arriving on roads cleared only yesterday. "How can anyone fight this?" he murmurs. Below him, Weiss climbs halfway out of the turret, pausing to study his commander's face. "What did you see out there, Victor?" Riemann answers slowly, voice low and distant. "I saw the end of the war. Not today, not this week. But somewhere out there, in those factories, it's already decided." The orchard rustles with a warm summer breeze. Yet the air feels colder than the darkest winter. In the distance, American half-tracks fan out across a field infantry, hopping off with purposeful motion. Further back, fuel trucks line up to refill the fresh Shermans. A line of maintenance tents rises like a second army behind the first. An entire ecosystem of war self-sustaining, unbreakable. Reimann stands atop his panzer hands, resting on the warm metal of the turret, and he finally allows the truth to speak. "We're not retreating from men," he says softly. "We're retreating from an assembly line." Weiss closes his eyes. Schwartz whispers a quiet prayer. Kruger starts the engine again, knowing it may be the last time it turns over. The Panzer IV backs out of the orchard and returns to the dirt track. The crew braces as the tank lurches forward, heading toward Le Mans, toward another defensive line. Another delay, another battle they cannot win. And behind them, like a rolling tide of steel and power, the American armor continues its advance. Not faster because of superior tactics, not stronger because of superior firepower, but unstoppable because behind every Sherman destroyed in the field, another waits on a transport, and behind that one another, and behind that dozens more. The weight of industry, cold, relentless, inevitable, presses down on the German army like a tightening vice. And Reimann knows Germany is no longer fighting a nation. It is fighting a factory floor. August 14th, 1944. Eastern approaches to Le Mans. A gray dawn rolls over the fields like a thin sheet of smoke, revealing anti-tank ditches, makeshift barricades, and exhausted German soldiers digging foxholes with trembling hands. The defensive ring around Le Mans is a patchwork of desperation units cobbled together from shattered battalions, replacement crews recovering wounded Luftwaffe ground personnel now fighting as infantry. The Panzer IV limps into position behind a low stone wall overlooking a narrow highway leading into the city. Its right track squeals with every rotation. A jolt from the last artillery near miss damaged the road wheel casing. The drivetrain is overheating, but the tank is still moving, barely. Reimann knows it won't survive another hard push. He climbs out of the turret, scanning the line. Every few seconds, he hears coughing engines, misfires, metal clanking, as mechanics hammer bent track links back into shape. The German armor around them is bruised, battered, and clinging to life through patchwork repairs. Even the mighty Panther tanks nearby are scorched by previous engagements. Side skirts, missing exhaust ports, cracked sights, fogged from repeated shock waves. And yet they stand ready again. Because they have no choice. Weiss approaches with 2 dented canteens. "Water," he says simply. Raymond drinks, then hands it back. "How's the ammo?" 3 AP rounds, Weiss replies. 7 HE, that's all. Raymond nods. He expected worse. From behind them, Oberleutnant Gruber arrives on foot, his face streaked with grime, greatcoat torn near the sleeve. "Ryman," he says, voice rough, but controlled. "Enemy reconnaissance has been spotted west of the city. Their armor is preparing for a full push." Ryman squints toward the horizon. "Do we have any reinforcements?" he asks. Gruber forces a thin, humorless smile. "We are the reinforcements." He hands Raymond a folded map. "The Americans have encircled Alençon. If we can hold here for a few hours, the rest of the regiment may escape south." Raymond opens the map, half of it smeared with mud. A simple defensive line, a simple order, an impossible task. He raises his binoculars again, and then he hears it. A low, distant hum, steady, rhythmic, mechanical. He focuses the lenses. Numb Shermans, dozens, advancing in perfect column formation. Behind them, more armor. Behind that, fuel trucks. Behind that, artillery. And behind all of it, another line of Shermans. All fresh, all clean, all ready. Ryman lowers the binoculars. "They're here," he says. Gruber nods, jaw tight. "We hold." His tone hardens, no matter the cost. Mo. The first American shells whistle overhead, landing beyond the stone wall in violent bursts. A Panther to their left fires back its cannon, rocking the earth. A Stuga 3 ambushes from a farmhouse ruin, knocking out the lead Sherman. For a moment, just a moment, the old tactics work. But then the second line of Shermans pushes forward. Then the third line. Then another column turns onto a parallel road. Then more engines appear from the tree line, an entire mechanized battalion spreading across the fields. Victor Weiss shouts from the turret. "They're flanking us." Ryman dives inside and slams the hatch shut. "Traverse right. Driver reposition 30 meters back." The tank groans as it strains to reverse, but the damaged wheel catches. The track slips. The engine sputters. Another American shell explodes nearby, blowing apart the stone wall and showering the Panzer IV in debris. Inside, Schwartz screams as fragments ricochet inside the hull. "I'm hit, but I'm fine. Keep firing." Weiss steadies the gun, breathing heavily. Target Sherman, 600 meters. The cannon fires. The shell streaks across the field and punches into the American tank's lower hull. Smoke erupts from the Sherman's vents. The crew cheers for half a second, but then they see it. 2 more Shermans roll forward to replace the one just destroyed. Behind them, another 5. Behind them, a new wave of trucks carrying spare parts and ammunition. It's endless. It's overwhelming. It's reality. Kruger shouts from below, voice cracking. "They're everywhere. We can't fall back. The engine won't take it." Ryman grips the periscope. "We don't fall back," he says, voice hollow. "We hold. For as long as we can." He watches the next row of Shermans, advancing like pieces on a factory conveyor belt, rolling into place. Weiss whispers Victor, "This is hopeless." Ryman finally allows himself to say it. "Yes," he replies softly, "it is." But they hold their position anyway, because retreat is no longer an option and surrender is not yet on the table. Outside, the American armor spreads like a tightening net, and the German line, the battered, exhausted, broken line, prepares to meet the industrial storm one last time. August 14th, 1944. Late afternoon, east of Le Mans. Smoke rolls low across the field, swirling around broken farm fences and toppled telegraph poles. The summer heat turns the smoke into a choking haze that clings to every inch of the Panzer IV's armor. Inside, the air is stifling metallic hot, filled with the bitter tang of cordite and sweat. Raymond steadies himself against the shaking interior as another American artillery barrage lands nearby. The concussive blasts rattle the tank's bolts and send a rain of dust drifting down from the turret ceiling. Weiss grips the gun controls tightly, knuckles white. "They're adjusting their fire," he says, voice trembling. "They're walking it closer." Schwartz is jammed between the ammo racks, breathing hard. "We're out of AP Victor. 1 he round left." Raymond nods slowly. The fact doesn't surprise him. Nothing surprises him anymore. Through the periscope, he sees German infantry scrambling from one destroyed vehicle to another, clinging to whatever cover they can find. A Panther beside them burns fiercely ammunition, exploding from its turret, like fiery comets. A Stug 3 lies immobilized, its crew lying motionless nearby, and yet the Shermans keep advancing. 3 columns now moving in sync. Infantry ride on the engine decks. Engineers crouch in half-tracks. More trucks unload behind them, forming tidy supply clusters like miniature factories set up right there on the battlefield. Weiss whispers, "How can they do this every day?" Raymond exhales shakily. "They don't fight the way we do," he answers. "We ration everything: fuel, parts, ammo, even time." He gestures toward the distant American columns. They don't ration anything. They don't have to. Another explosion erupts behind them, closer this time. The Panzer R4 rocks violently, throwing the crew against the interior. Kruger shouts from below. "That was their artillery, 200 meters. They're zeroing us in." Raymond grips the periscope again. In the distance, an American M7 Priest self-propelled gun reloads its crew, working with mechanical precision. A line of ammunition crates sits ready, each one stenciled with fresh dates. They aren't running low. They aren't scrambling to find shells. They aren't recycling casings or rationing propellant. For the Americans, war is not a dwindling resource. It's a supply chain. Raymond watches a fuel truck refill a Sherman, even as the tank's commander scans the horizon. More trucks pull up with crates of replacement parts. Mechanics jump down wrenches already in hand. In minutes, damaged Shermans are patched up and back in action. Minutes. He feels his stomach knot. "This isn't warfare," he murmurs. "This is production at gunpoint." Weiss looks at him. "Victor." "What are you saying?" Raymond finally understands the thing he has been circling for days. He has felt it creeping closer with every new column, every fresh Sherman, every synchronized maneuver. He turns to his crew, voice hollow but steady. "I'm saying that nothing we do here matters anymore." Silence fills the turret. Not defeatist silence, not cowardice, just truth, heavy, irreversible, undeniable. Schwartz breaks it first, voice small. "Then why are we still fighting?" Raymond answers softly, "Because we're soldiers. And soldiers follow orders." Outside, the Shermans begin their final approach. Their formation tightens. Their guns elevate. Weiss swings the turret toward the nearest column, even though they have nothing left that can hurt it. Kruger wipes his forehead with the back of his sleeve, smearing grease across his face. "Victor, this is it, isn't it?" Raymond doesn't answer immediately. He scans the field one last time. He sees hundreds of American vehicles, tanks, half-tracks, jeeps, each one a product of a factory, capable of replacing itself faster than destruction can reduce it. He sees German armor, burned broken, leaking oil, and desperation reduced to a shadow of its former power. He sees the truth of the war painted across the landscape with smoke and steel. Finally, he speaks. "Yes," he says quietly, "this is it." Another artillery round impacts 30 meters away. Dirt rains down. The Panzer IV shudders and groans. Raymond grips the periscope, muscles burning. Not with anger, not with fear. With understanding. The kind that comes at the end of something once believed to be unbreakable. He stares at the advancing American tanks, another fresh Sherman rolling into formation. And he knows the war didn't turn today. It turned years ago in a factory thousands of miles away. August 14th, 1944. Early evening, east of Le Mans. The sky glows orange as the sun sinks behind the distant hills, its light filtering through smoke and dust like embers swirling inside a furnace. Every silhouette trees, barns, telephone poles seems warped by heat and haze, as if the entire battlefield is melting under the weight of a truth too heavy for steel. The Panzer IV sits immobile now. Kruger finally coaxed it out of the orchard, but the damaged road wheel gave out for good on the last turn. The right track hangs loose, sagging like a dead limb. The engine clanks once more, then coughs itself into silence. Inside, the crew feels the stillness settle over them like a burial shroud. Weiss tries the turret traverse. It groans, barely moves. The hydraulics are failing. Schwartz grips his bandaged arm. Victor, we can't fight. We can't even run. Ryman stares through the periscope, its lenses smeared with dust. What he sees is not an enemy attack, not a tactical maneuver, but a procession. A slow, unstoppable, perfectly supplied procession of American armor, rolling forward in endless lines. Shermans, M10s, half-tracks, fuel trucks, repair vehicles, mobile field kitchens, medical jeeps. Every one of them a product of a system far bigger than this battlefield. Ryman lifts himself out of the cupola. He stands atop the Panzer IV's hull, exposed to the fading light, watching the horizon with a strange calm. Weiss climbs beside him. They'll see us, he warns. They don't need to see us, Ryman answers quietly. We're finished. In the distance, an American engineer unit sets up a forward depot tense, unfolding cranes, unloading crates, mechanics, laying out tools. Behind them, more vehicles approach with the ease of a train schedule. Germany once prided itself on craftsmanship, precision optics, finely tuned engines, the elite quality of its panzers. And all of it is being swallowed whole by an opponent that built more tanks in a month than Germany could build in half a year. Weiss follows Ryman's gaze. What are you thinking? Ryman inhales the orchard's bitter scent clinging to his senses. I'm thinking about the Detroit arsenal, he says. A factory the size of a small city. A place where steel slabs enter one end and finished tanks roll out the other. Weiss frowns. How do you know? Gruber told me. Intelligence reports. POW interrogations, rumors. He shakes his head. But now, I can see it with my own eyes. The proof is right there, rumbling across the fields. Dozens of Shermans in the first wave. Dozens more behind them. Fresh crews, fresh fuel, fresh ammunition, fresh everything. A Panther nearby fires one last desperate shot before an American shell rips through its flank. The explosion sends a column of flame into the sky. The burning wreck collapses in on itself, smoke curling upward like a signal fire, marking the end of an era. Weiss flinches. Ryman doesn't. He simply watches. This, Ryman says, voice low, is what a war looks like when one side has machines and the other side has factories. Weiss shakes his head slowly. That's not a battle, Victor. That's inevitability. Ryman steps down from the hull boots, crunching on dry earth. Do you remember when we arrived in France, he asks. We thought we were unstoppable. We believed our training would make up for everything. Weiss nods weakly. Now look, Ryman continues. Our tanks are breaking faster than we can repair them. Our fuel is disappearing faster than we can replace it. And those, he gestures toward the horizon, those Shermans are not replacements. They are production runs. Schwartz leans out of the turret, voice trembling. So what do we do? A long silence follows. Everything around them vibrates with a roar of American engines. Ryman answers at last. We survive. Weiss whispers, by fighting or by surrendering. Ryman looks at the burning Panther. He looks at the advancing Shermans. He looks at his broken tank. And then he speaks the truth that every German soldier on this front is beginning to understand. We survive, he says, by accepting that this war is already lost. Weiss bows his head. Schwartz closes his eyes. Kruger sits in silence. The shelling stops. The smoke thins. The engine noise grows louder, closer. The American tanks are nearly upon them. Ryman climbs down from the hull and opens the side hatch. Out he orders softly, "All of you." We leave the tank. The crew hesitates, but only for a moment. They descend quietly into the fading evening light. Behind them, the Panzer IV sits like an empty shell, its battle finally finished. Ahead of them, the American war machine approaches an ocean of steel fed by a river of factories that never sleep. And for the first time in the entire campaign, Feldwebel Victor Reimann feels a strange, unwanted emotion. Relief. August 14th, 1944. Nightfall. Fields east of Le Mans. The daylight finally dies, swallowed by a warm violet dusk that settles over the battered countryside like a soft blanket trying to cover the wounds of the day. Smoke still drifts through the air, glowing faintly in the last sliver of sunlight. The sky above holds that eerie post-battle quiet, the kind where the world seems to inhale and hold its breath. Ryman and his crew move through a stretch of tall grass, keeping low away from the main road. Their uniforms are torn, smeared with grease and soot. Sweat stains their collars. Dust clings to their boots. Behind them, the Panzer IV rests silently under the broken orchard trees, its engine cold, its tracks collapsed, its war over. Ahead, faint voices echo across the fields, American voices. Calm, confident, unhurried. Weiss glances over his shoulder at the tank one last time. "She carried us farther than she should have," he murmurs. Ryman nods. "She did. But she wasn't built for this war. Not anymore." A hush falls between them as they move deeper into the field. The sounds of American armor rumble in the distance, a rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat. Schwartz breaks the silence. "Do you think they'll shoot us, Victor?" Ryman shakes his head. "No, not these Americans. I've heard how they treat prisoners." Weiss forces a weak smile. "Better than how our officers treat us." They continue walking until the tall grass thins, and the landscape opens into a shallow depression near a cluster of hay bales. Moonlight glimmers on the metal surface of discarded ammunition boxes. A distant barn creaks in the wind. Riemann raises his hand, signaling the crew to stop. "Here," he whispers. "This is where we wait." They crouch behind the hay bales and listen. The American column grows louder. Shermans rolling at steady intervals, half-tracks rattling over stones, trucks humming with fresh engines that sound nothing like the coughing, dying motors of German supply vehicles. Kruger hugs his knees, trembling. "I can't believe how many they still have." Ryman closes his eyes. "It's not that they have many," he says. "It's that they can make more any time they want. Factories that run day and night. Assembly lines longer than our entire motor pool." Weiss exhales shakily. "Do you think it's like this everywhere?" Ryman nods. "Yes. I think what we saw outside Le Mans is just one piece. The whole war, Russia, Italy, the Pacific, it's all being fed by the same engine." A soft rumble grows louder. Then, through the dim moonlight, and the first Sherman appears, rolling slowly across the field road turret, swiveling lazily as the crew scans the area. Another follows behind it, then another. A string of armor and vehicles stretching so far back that the line disappears into the darkness. The American war machine moves with the calm assurance of a side that knows defeat is no longer possible. Schwartz whispers, "They're not even rushing." "Why would they?" Ryman replies. "There's nothing left to stop them." The nearest Sherman approaches the dip where the Germans are hiding. The tank halts, engine rumbling at idle. The commander emerges from the turret, adjusting his helmet. Ryman lifts his hand slowly. "Stand up," he tells his crew, "hands high." Weiss hesitates for only a second, then rises beside him. Schwartz follows, grimacing as pain shoots up his bandaged arm. Kruger comes last, unsteady on his feet. The American commander spots them instantly. "Hold up!" he shouts down into his tank. We got 4 Krauts here, hands up, no weapons. 4 rifle-armed infantrymen jog forward from behind the Sherman, forming a semicircle. Their rifles stay lowered, but ready. One speaks his accent unmistakably Midwestern. "You boys done fightin' for today?" Ryman answers in exhausted, accented English. "Yes, we are finished." The American steps closer, studying their faces. "You fellas from that tank in the orchard." Ryman nods once. "We saw it," the GI says. "Hell of a hit you took." Weiss exhales, part laugh, part sob. The American gestures with his rifle toward the rear of the convoy. "All right then. Come on. We'll get you water, maybe a smoke. You're safe now." Safe. The word hits Riemann like a blow. Safe from artillery. Safe from tanks. Safe from the crushing pressure of a war Germany can no longer sustain. Safe from an industrial machine that refuses to slow. As they walk toward the American rear lines, Riemann glances back one last time. There it is, his Panzer IV, silent, wrecked, outproduced, outpaced, overwhelmed. He turns away. The American convoy stretches endlessly into the night, headlights flickering like stars along a man-made horizon. And Riemann finally understands the full truth. In 1944, the war wasn't won in the fields of France. It was won in the foundries, steel mills, and assembly belts of Detroit, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Cleveland. The battlefield was only the final signature. The real victory was stamped onto every fresh Sherman rolling off the line, each one a declaration that Germany's time was over. August 15th, 1944. Early morning. American holding area east of Le Mans. A pale blue dawn creeps across the makeshift American bivouac, soft light, brushing over rows of parked Sherman's tents, fuel drums, and supply crates marked with crisp U.S. stencils. The air smells of brewed coffee, warm engine oil, and damp earth. A strange peace lingers here, the kind found only behind victorious lines. Ryman sits on an overturned wooden crate, feeling its rough edges through his worn field trousers. His wrists are free. His boots remain on his feet. And he holds a tin mug of hot coffee, his first warm drink in days. Weiss sits beside him, staring into the mug, as though it might vanish if he blinks. "It's good," he mutters, surprised. American coffee. Schwartz rests with his back against a fuel drum, his injured arm freshly bandaged by an American medic. "They didn't even ask our names before helping," he says quietly. "Just patched us up." Kruger exudes a kind of dazed calm. His eyes track the motion of a nearby supply convoy. Dozens of trucks arriving with fresh crates of ammunition, food, and spare parts, all sorted with an efficiency so smooth it seems rehearsed. Ryman watches, unable to look away. American mechanics kneel beside a Sherman, wrenching off damaged track links. Within 10 minutes, the tank is ready to move again. Fuel trucks refill vehicles in a tidy sequence. Artillery crews unload new rounds from wooden crates with stenciled dates so fresh the ink hasn't fully dried. A fully restored armored spearhead is forming before his eyes. Not because they won the battle yesterday, but because they could again today, tomorrow, and the day after. Weiss follows his gaze. "Victor, look at that one." He points toward a Sherman with a brand new turret ring, fresh paint still glossy under the rising sun. "It looks untouched," he adds. Raymond shakes his head. "It is untouched. I think it's new." Weiss frowns. "New here already." Ryman nods slowly. "They don't repair the old ones," he says. "They replace them faster than repair crews can even diagnose issues." Behind them, an American NCO chats with a fellow GI, gesturing toward a clipboard stacked with requisition papers. "Third wave's coming up from Nantes tonight," the man says. "Fresh tanks and fuel. HQ wants them ready for the push toward Paris by tomorrow." Ryman absorbs the words like a man listening to a foreign language he suddenly understands. Fresh tanks, fresh fuel, push toward Paris. Weiss swallows hard. Tomorrow. Paris tomorrow. Ryman nods slowly. Yes, for them it's possible. Schwartz mutters for us that would have taken a month. Across the compound, the Americans work with a calm efficiency the Germans have not felt in years. There is no shouting, no panic, no frantic scavenging for parts or fuel. Every crate has a destination. Every tank has a schedule. Every soldier has supplies. A war run like a business. A military driven by paperwork timetables and assembly line predictability. Ryman takes another sip of coffee. It warms his chest, loosening something tight inside him. A group of American soldiers approaches a sergeant and two enlisted men. Their demeanor is relaxed, casual, almost friendly. "You fellas all right?" the sergeant asks, hands on his hips. Ryman nods. "Yes, we are fine." "Good. Mess tent opens in 10 minutes. You'll get hot food." He pauses, glancing at Ryman's worn uniform. "You're a tank crew, right?" Ryman nods again. The sergeant whistles appreciatively. "Hell of a job you gave our boys yesterday. They said your Panzer took a beating and kept fighting." Weiss manages a thin smile. "That's what we were trained to do." The sergeant grins. "Well, lucky for both of us, the war's bigger than training now." He gestures behind him toward the endless lines of vehicles and supply trucks. "This right here is what wins wars," he says. "You boys ran into a whole lot more than a few Shermans." He taps the side of his helmet lightly. "You ran into Detroit." Then he walks off, leaving the words to settle like dust. Ryman stares at the ground, at the coffee mug, at his boots, at nothing. Weiss breaks the silence. "He's right, Victor." Ryman nods, slowly, heavily, finally without resistance. "Yes, he is." The morning sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the American lines. And in that moment, surrounded not by fire and steel, but by the quiet hum of an army that cannot be stopped, Feldwebel Victor Rehmann understands something with perfect clarity, more profound than any lesson a battlefield could teach. Germany did not lose to superior tactics, nor to superior bravery, nor even to superior technology. Germany lost to capacity. To a nation that could build more tanks than it lost, more trucks than it wrecked, more guns than it fired. A nation whose factories fought harder than any soldier. Ryman exhales. The war for him is over. Its outcome for all of Germany was decided long before he climbed into a tank. August 15th, 1944. Midday. American POW processing zone, Le Mans perimeter. Canvas tents flap in the warm breeze. The scent of diesel fumes mingles with the aroma of stew simmering in a field kitchen. Rows of freshly captured German soldiers sit in quiet clusters, some whispering, many staring into space, all drained by the realization that the war they fought so fiercely is crumbling around them. Ryman and his crew are escorted toward a registration tent. Not with rifles prodding their backs, not with shouted orders. Just a simple gesture from an American MP, unhurried, almost gentle. Inside the tent, typewriters clack, steadily manned by clerks in rolled-up sleeves. Stacked forms cover the tables. A radio plays faint jitterbug music. To Ryman, it feels surreal, this calm efficiency so close to the chaos of yesterday's battlefield. A corporal hands them each a tag with a number. "Keep these on you," he says. "Food and shelter are over there. Medical tents that way. If you need anything, ask." Schwartz raises an eyebrow. "Anything?" The corporal shrugs. "Reasonably anything." Weiss mutters to Ryman under his breath. "They treat us better than our own commanders." A loud metallic clang echoes outside, followed by the familiar rumble of tracks. Ryman steps out of the tent and freezes. A line of Shermans rolls through the road beside the compound, fresh ones gleaming under the noon sun. Mechanics in oil-stained overalls jog alongside, shouting instructions, checking gear, patting the armor, as if telling it, "Welcome to the war." One of the tanks bears chalk writing on its hull. "Detroit's gift, August 12, 1944. Weiss emerges beside him, reading the words. "That tank." He swallows. "That tank was built 3 days ago." Ryman nods slowly, stunned. A U.S. sergeant standing nearby overhears and grins. 3 days, hell, some of these were built yesterday. Our supply guys wanted them near the front ASAP. Got them on a train, then onto trucks, and boom, they're here. Raymond turns to him. Yesterday, he repeats, voice barely above a whisper. Is that true? Sure is, the sergeant replies proudly. Our factories are running day and night. You blow up one of our tanks in the morning, we can have another rolling out by sunset. He claps Raymond lightly on the shoulder. Cheer up. That means the war will be over sooner. Weiss lets out a long breath. Schwartz leans against a post, shaking his head in disbelief. Kruger stares at the American tanks, as if watching a force of nature. Ryman watches the Shermans pass, each one a symbol of something Germany never truly understood until it was too late. Not American courage, not American strategy, not American luck, but American production. He remembers his own tank crew scavenging for spare parts, cutting track links from wrecks, draining fuel from abandoned cars, just to move another few kilometers. He remembers nights spent repairing a single gear with improvised tools because factories back home were bombed or starved of resources. None of that exists here. Here the war machine breathes on its own. A new convoy arrives. Another long line of trucks carrying crates of ammunition, rations, fuel barrels, and replacement components. The drivers laugh and smoke as they unload crates, chatting as though they're preparing for a weekend festival rather than supplying an advancing army. Weiss whispers, "This is impossible." Ryman shakes his head. "No. This," he gestures to the endless stream of vehicles, "this is why we lost. Not because they were better soldiers, not because they had better tactics, but because they never ran out of anything." As they stand watching, an American lieutenant walks by, holding a clipboard stacked with supply manifests. He pauses, noticing their interest. "Impressive, isn't it?" he says. Ryman nods cautiously. "It is." The lieutenant smiles. "America doesn't fight wars alone," he explains. "We fight them with our factories, our shipyards, our railroads. These tanks are just the final delivery." Ryman absorbs the words. Factories, shipyards, railroads. 1,000 miles of industry that no frontline soldier ever sees, but every soldier ultimately answers to. The lieutenant pats the nearest Sherman affectionately. "War's not just bullets," he says. "It's logistics, production, replacement. You destroy one of ours, we send you 10 more. That's just how it is." Ryman feels something inside him shift, a strange, hollow acceptance. The kind that comes when a man finally understands a truth he has been avoiding for far too long. "We never stood a chance," he murmurs. Maybe the lieutenant replies, "But you fought hard. That counts for something." Ryman doesn't disagree, but he knows the truth. Courage may win battles, but factories win wars. He turns away from the passing Shermans and walks back toward the POW area, the grass bending under his boots. The sun is warm on his shoulders. The air is calm. For the first time in months, he is not running. He is not fighting. He is not repairing a broken machine long past its limits. He is simply walking, free from the weight of a war that industry, not men, decided long ago. August 16th, 1944. Morning. American temporary POW camp southwest of Le Mans. A soft drizzle falls over the camp, turning the dirt beneath the soldiers' boots into a thin layer of mud. The sound of raindrops tapping against canvas tents creates a quiet rhythm, gentle, almost soothing. For the first time in weeks, Victor Riemann wakes to something other than artillery. He sits up on the straw mat, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The air smells of wet earth, coffee, and wood smoke from a nearby field stove. Weiss snores softly beside him. Schwartz groans as he shifts his injured arm. Kruger whispers a morning prayer under his breath. For a moment, everything feels strangely normal. Outside, American soldiers move briskly through the drizzle, organizing supplies, assembling breakfast lines, checking their vehicles. Their movements are easy and unhurried. Victory isn't a distant hope for them. It's a timetable. Reimann steps outside, letting the cool rain wash over his face. He sees a line of freshly parked Sherman tanks near the far fence. Last night they hadn't been there. Now there are 20, maybe 30, rain beads on their clean coats of paint. A few mechanics walk among them, tightening bolts, checking tracks, humming to themselves. Reimann approaches the fence, slowly stopping a few meters away. Weiss joins him, hair dripping. "They keep coming," Weiss murmurs. Reimann nods. "Yes. They weren't even fighting yesterday," Weiss adds. "Look at them. Not a scratch." Reimann glances at the row of gleaming tanks. "Factory new," he says quietly. The realization is still shocking even now. These tanks are not refitted, not repaired, not reclaimed from battle. They are new, straight from a port, straight from a depot, straight from a factory that produced more tanks per week than Germany could dream of. Weiss clasps his arms, shivering slightly. "Do you think our officers ever understood this?" he asks. Reimann considers the question carefully. "Our generals believed in breakthroughs," he says. "Encirclements, tactical genius, maneuver warfare." He gestures toward the American armor. But they never understood what happens when one side can replace anything. Instantly, Weiss rubs his forehead, rain sliding down his cheeks like tears. "My father always said Germany had the best engineers in the world." Reimann sighs. "We did," he agrees. "But theirs had the bigger factories." Nearby, an American GI drains water from his helmet and chuckles as he helps guide yet another supply truck into place. More crates come off marked with bright shipping labels, all dated within the past 48 hours. Reimann watches silently. Every crate is a reminder. Every truck is a lesson. Every new Sherman is a verdict. This war was never just about tanks firing at each other. It was about which nation could build them faster. And Germany, for all its precision, all its pride, all its steel, was never able to match the bottomless industrial power standing on the other side of this fence. A German officer in a muddied uniform trudges past the POW area, escorted by MPs. His shoulders sag. His eyes are hollow. Reimann recognizes him. Hauptmann Keller. A logistics officer from their division, once a man who barked orders with iron confidence. Keller pauses when he sees Reimann and his crew. "It's over," Feldwebel Keller croaks. "All of it. The whole front is collapsing." Reimann nods gently. "I know, Herr Hauptmann." Keller looks past them toward the American tanks. "Do you know how many panzers our division can expect next month?" he asks. Weiss swallows. "No." One Keller says. "One single replacement Panzer IV, if the roads aren't bombed." Reimann closes his eyes. "And how many Shermans will they receive?" he asks. Keller gives a broken laugh. "Hundreds," he says, "maybe more." He continues walking, shoulders slumped. Weiss watches him go. "What will happen to us?" he asks quietly. Reimann looks toward the distant American lines. "I don't know," he says. "But whatever it is, it will be better than what we left behind." Behind them, the rain begins to ease. A soft breeze sweeps across the camp, the first clean wind they've felt in days. Reimann closes his eyes. Not to remember the battles, not to recall the fear, but to acknowledge something deeper. They never stood a chance. Not against the power of a nation that could turn steel into victory faster than Germany could turn defeat into retreat. August 17th, 1944. Afternoon. POW camp perimeter, southwest of Le Mans. The sun breaks through the clouds for the first time in days. Its warm golden light glitters across the damp grass, casting long shadows of watchtowers' tents and the orderly rows of American vehicles parked beyond the perimeter fence. Somewhere nearby, a bugle sounds a brief tune, clean, confident, unhurried. Reimann sits on a wooden bench beside Weiss, Schwartz, and Kruger. They share a tin plate of stew, simple, warm, and more food than they've eaten in a single meal for weeks. The tension in their shoulders has eased. Their breathing is slower. Their eyes no longer dart nervously at every engine sound. Because here behind the American lines, the war has changed shape. It no longer feels like a storm closing in. It feels like a storm passing. The clatter of engines draws their attention. A column of brand-new Shermans rumbles past the camp's main road, their fresh tracks imprinting the muddy ground. Each tank is tagged with chalk lines, shipping numbers, factory dates, delivery notes. One tank bears the chalk words. Fresh from Warren, Michigan, 48 hours. Weiss stares in disbelief. They shipped a tank across the Atlantic in 2 days. Ryman exhales slowly. There's no more mystery left, he says. No more guessing how they do it. We've seen it right here. He gestures toward the endless flow of vehicles, supplies, and personnel. Trucks refuel beside canvas tanks of gasoline. Mechanics unload crates of spare parts. Mobile forges hammer out replacement track pins. Radio operators test new equipment fresh from depots. A machine of war alive, humming tireless. All of this, Raymond says quietly, is the answer. Schwartz furrows his brow. The answer to what? Ryman turns to him, then to all three of his men. To how a nation wins a modern war. They wait listening. Ryman continues. It isn't just bravery, or tactics, or firepower. It's replacement. He points at the Shermans rolling past. It's being able to lose a tank today and have another waiting tomorrow. He points at the supply trucks. It's having more fuel than you can burn, more ammunition than you can fire, more food than you can eat. Then he points to the American mechanics. And it's having people who know they'll never run out. Weiss lowers his eyes. We ran out of everything. Kruger nods, even hope. The breeze shifts, carrying the distant sound of American soldiers laughing as they unload crates from yet another supply truck. Ryman watches them work, not frantically, not desperately, but confidently. Like men who know the task will be finished on time because the system behind them is unbreakable. As the afternoon light brightens, an American captain walks past the POW area with a folded newspaper tucked under his arm. He stops near the fence, glancing at the German tankers. You men from a panzer crew, he asks. Raymond stands politely. Yes, sir. The captain nods, thoughtful. You fought well, he says. One of my boys said your tank scored a couple good hits. Weiss manages a tired smirk. We tried. The captain taps the newspaper. You want to know something interesting? According to this report, U.S. factories produced over 2,000 Shermans last month. He raises his eyebrows. 2,000. In 1 month. Schwartz's jaw drops. Kruger mutters a stunned curse under his breath. Ryman feels a chill run through him, not fear, but awe. The captain continues, folding the paper under his arm again. You men fought against our tanks. But the real enemy you were up against, he gestures vaguely eastward, was an assembly line. Then he gives a respectful nod and walks away. The 4 Germans stand silently, absorbing his words. Finally, Raymond sits back down on the bench. He looks at his crewmen he's fought beside, bled beside, survived beside. It wasn't our fault, he says softly. Weiss turns. What? It wasn't our fault, Raymond repeats. We didn't lose to soldiers. We lost to a nation that turned its industry into a weapon bigger than any tank on the battlefield. Schwartz closes his eyes, letting the truth settle. Kruger gazes at the rows of American armor. Weiss whispers, so this is how it ends. Ryman nods. Yes. Not with a final charge. Not with a heroic last stand. But with the realization that we fought a war Germany could never hope to sustain. He looks toward the horizon, where the American columns stretch endlessly, fuel steel engines, ammunition, marching forward with the certainty of a rising tide. A tide that cannot be held back. A tide built in factories thousands of miles away. Ryman breathes deeply, letting the warm breeze wash over him. For years, he says quietly, we thought we were unstoppable. But this, he gestures toward the distant columns. This is what unstoppable really looks like. The camp falls silent, except for the steady rumble of engines. A sound not of war's chaos, but of war's conclusion. A sound written in steel. stamped in factories, forged in supply chains. And as Victor Reimann watches yet another line of fresh Shermans roll past under the bright afternoon sun, he finally accepts the truth.